Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Multicultural Classroom project, a critical approach to gender, culture, and socioeconomic inclusion in language education. We are Group 34, my colleagues Jairo Antonio Yela Orego, Kelly Pamela Mayama Perlaza, Solange Carlos Ama Muñoz, and Dani Fernando Duque Perez. Today, we will present our project Beyond the Textbook, Building a Culturally Responsive Language Classroom that is address three critical multicultural issues in language education, like gender roles, cultural assumptions, and socioeconomic status. Let's start. Overview of the select multicultural issues. Gender role in language learning, how language materials and teacher talk reinforce occupational, behavioral, and pronoun-based stereotypes. What is important? A study by Eaton and Ichot in 2020 found that 78% of ESL textbooks still present highly gender segregated professions. For example, women are nurses, teachers, and men are doctors or engineers. The omission of the singular pronoun they or them in basic levels make non-binary students invisible, increasing language anxiety. For example, during my pedagogical practice in Chachawi, a 40 years old girl say me, teacher, I want to be a pilot. Since we were discussing careers based on the textbooks we were using in the class. The book stated a pilot must be brave and make quick decisions. She raised her hand and asked me, teacher, can we only men be pilots? And I explained it to them that both women and men can pursue these professions. Cultural assumptions in language learning. The hygiene expectation that all students share Western, middle class, or majority cultural reference like holidays, family structures, or idioms. What is important? Many materials assume the ideal student is Western, for example, Christian, or at least celebrates Christmas. From a nuclear family, for example, mother, father, two children, maybe, or one pet. Non-Anglo-Saxon idioms like spill the beans, piece of cake, white elephants say. Many textbooks assume a Western Christian or middle class, and they ask students to write about Thanksgiving dinner. But according to the World Bank, only 18% of the world's population celebrates Thanksgiving. During my pedagogical practice in the same school, a student raised her hand and say me, teacher, I don't know what Thanksgiving is. We don't celebrate in my culture. It's okay if we don't celebrate it. I told her it was no problem, since those holidays are more of North American and other countries. Finally, language proficient and socioeconomic status, CS. Having equal access to resources like internet, travel, books, tutors can be misinterpreted as low ability of effort. What is important? We believe that if a student tries hard, they will learn. But the reality is that access to resource determines a large part of visible success. In my didactics of mathematics course, appear design a working task asking students to describe your last vacation. Several classmates pointed out that many adults learned in our contest have never left their region. The feedback was the task to describe meaningful place you have visited or dreamed of visiting. Also in English 5, for example, I teach students to research amusing website in English. One student quickly admitted they had no computer, no have internet. The teacher was surprised, but then offered print brochures and videos downloaded in class to be more flexibly in inclusion. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone. Now I'm going to talk about some important strategies to promote inclusion in multicultural language classroom and also explain how certain problems can affect students' learning process. In many English classrooms today, students come from different cultural backgrounds, have different abilities and different ways of learning. Because of this, teachers need to create safe and respectful environments where everyone feels included and valued. One important issue is the inclusion of people with special abilities. Sometimes schools or classrooms do not have enough resource or accommodation for these students. For example, some students may need visual support, subtitles, adapted activities, or more time to complete tasks. When these supports are not provided, students can feel excluded, frustrated, or less motivated to participate. This can negatively affect their confidence and learning process. To improve this situation, teachers can use exclusive strategies, such as adapting materials using visual aids, giving clear instruction, and allowing flexible participation. Small changes in the classroom can make a big difference for students. Another important issue is cultural appropriation in language practice. This happens when cultural elements are used without understanding their meaning or importance. For example, using traditions, clothing, or expressions from another culture only for entertainment or stereotypes can be disrespectful. This affects learning because students from those cultures may feel uncomfortable, invisible, or misunderstood. Instead of promoting intercultural communication, it can create distance and discrimination. To avoid this problem, teachers should present cultures respectfully and provide context about traditions and cultural practice. It is important to encourage curiosity, empathy, and respect instead of stereotypes. The third issue is implicit bias in language assessment. Sometimes teachers may unconsciously give higher grades to students with native like accents and underestimate students who speak differently. This can affect students emotionally and academically because they may feel that their efforts are not valued. It can also create insecurity when speaking English. To reduce bias, teachers shall focus more on communication, participation, and understanding rather than only pronunciation. Using clear rubrics and fair evaluation criteria can help create more equitable classroom. Overall, these multicultural issues show that language teaching is not only about grammar and vocabulary, it is also about inclusion, respect, empathy, and equal opportunities for everyone. As future English teachers, we should try to create classrooms where diversity is seen as a strength and where all students feel safe to express themselves and participate actively. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to present some examples of activity and resources designed to address inclusion and diversity issues in language learning classroom. The first issue is gender roles. Um, so we design one activity. This is a student car activity. In this activity, students work with sentence cards. They must complete sentence using appropriate pronouns while discussing different professions and roles. The purpose is to encourage critical thinking and reduce gender stereotypes in language use. Additionally, students also practice grammar in meaningful and real-life context, not only memorizing rules. So, students uh, need complete sentence using neutral or inclusive pronoun like singular they. So this helps students understand that language can be respectful or inclusive for all people. For example, singular they use for a person when we don't know the gender or when they prefer it. The second issue is cultural assumptions. Many English material focus mainly on Western tradition and lifestyles, which may exclude students from other cultures. So we design activities to promote intercultural awareness and global perspectives with this activity, Global Breakfast Challenge. So the students describe their own breakfast and also choose one breakfast from Japan, Mexico, Nigeria, France, Turkey, and explore about that breakfast. For example, what are the main foods, flavor, what would you like to try it, why or why not? So that the students learn and also uh, realize or recognize that there isn't only one normal culture and also promote speaking and vocabulary development throughout authentic cultural content. The third activity or the third issue to change this issue is language proficiency and socioeconomic status. So, uh, teacher should provide flexible and accessible activities that allow students to participate according to the level and content. Because some students may have more access to technology, books, or English exposure than others. In this session, teacher models an example, describe a place in the neighborhood using simple sentence and visual. Modeling helps students understand expectations clearly before creating their own work. Next, a student choose a proficiency level, pick a place in their neighborhood, for example, bus stop. Also, add a picture, yes, or draw a picture and upload, and then describe that place, yes, location, how is the neighborhood, the place, with simple sentence. And this is very important because it helps students connect language with personal experience and increase participation. Then there is a self-assessment that a student reflect on vocabulary, meaning, sentence structure, and presentation. This encourages autonomy and confidence learning. And finally, a reflection or conclusion. A student's reflection question about what they learned from their classmate and the activity itself. So, these results promote inclusion, cultural awareness, and equal participation in the language classroom. They help create a more respectful and supporting learning environment where every student feels represented and valued. Thank you.
Okay, suggestions for fostering open dialogue and understanding among students. Sample discussion starters. This is a necessary tool for opening space for conversations where students can explore and question topics of multiculturalism and inclusion. This is an example of intercultural dialogue where the classroom is transformed into a space for critical reflection, taking into account gestures, words, misunderstandings, and more. Continue with the teacher self-reflection. This is a vital process for teachers to analyze their own business and how their discourse meeting reinforce stereotypes or cultural assumptions. Uh, Here we have an example of weekly reflection, which questions whether classroom visual materials continue to reinforce stereotypes whether whether there is cultural flexibility and socioeconomic equality. It is an invitation to stop pretending that all students are the same and to start teaching by recognizing diverse release. So in conclusion, a critical bilingual education is proposed that transcends traditional materials through tools such as teacher self-reflection and the use of discussion starts, where the teacher ceases to be a mere executor of the curriculum and becomes an active designer of inclusion who values the identity of each student. Thank you.